Okay, so I took the reed valve off of it and I checked it out. It seems like it's pretty good. You know, turned the lights out and I put like a light on this side, and I put something down in there, or I'm sorry, I put a light up in here, and also took my finger, turned the lights out. If you see that piece that's moving down in there, when I push, if you shine light in there, you know, it helps. You know, I was basically using the light to see if I could see if that little thin piece of metal, it's not this piece here. There's actually another one that you can see the top of it. It's circular. You can see it moving or not there, but I put light in this hole. And I put something in there and I'll push on it. You know, I kind of watch the light all around the edges of it to see how it's coming through and stuff. Anyway, light wasn't coming through. I mean, there was one spot where you could see was brightened up on the edge, but that's not gonna make a difference. I know a lot of people, you watch these videos, say you should see no light. You know, you probably shouldn't, but I think this one right here will work just fine. Of course, this is the carb that come off of it. This is not the correct carb for the C7. Oh, and I found out, remember how I was talking about how I think the saw might have been sabotaged by somebody or something? I was blaming my poor grandfather. My grandfather, there was a place out in town there from where he lived, and I guess there was a chainsaw repair place out, you know, downtown or in town, however. And I guess somebody stole this saw at one time and took it over there to have it repaired, and the repair people recognized that it was my papa's saw because of this little wooden piece that he had whittled off on there. So that's why I'd say that tag is missing off of this thing. And I think that this cover, like, see this cover right here, that's definitely from a C7. I got another cover, you know, so we can have a tag, but I'm not going to use this cover because it's got all kinds of missing things. But this one is a little different, which, you know, I'm assuming this is C7, is a little different than the one that I took off of it. It's going to work though. See how that's conformed there, and it just seems beefier, like almost like it come off of a C9 or you know, or a C7-1 or C7-1G or something. Anyway, I'm still going to use this one. It's one Papa had. I know I had said that I'm probably going to leave that to, you know, because it gives it character or whatever, but I'm probably going to repair that. I'm probably going to take one of the little ribs off of here and put on there, repair it up. Let's see. So, yeah, the valve was good. Now, I just wanted to let you know that little story. My uncle or my grandfather actually told me that when I was talking to him, explaining to him some of the things that was going on with it. He was like, son, that one time that saw was stolen. And I knew right then and there, you know, everything made sense. So somebody stole the saw from my papa at one time, and he got it back. Anyway, got a drum, new drum. I've got a clutch. But it looks like that's been heated up a little bit right there, don't it? Somebody's took some heat to that. She's been heated. She's a little blue, but it looks a little slick right there where it got hot. We'll see. I'm going to take a little sandpaper to it, liven her back up. Anyway, it's brand used. It ain't brand new. It's brand used. A lot better than the other one. But I got a clutch that's coming in for it. I don't know if that clutch is any good or not. I haven't gotten any farther on it. And that's as far as I got. I took the carb off. Oh, here, I'll show you the, you know, this is what the carb, this is the actual carb. See, that's got them two shaft pieces coming off of it right there. Those will go in right here with those two. Well, I showed you before where he had whittled those two pieces of wood and stuck in there. That was for these two shaft pieces to come out. You can also tell the fuel inlet is different on these. See, right there is how it sits down in there. Up here goes to your motor. Right there is your choke. See how the fuel inlet's on the left right here? Original carb, the fuel inlet was on the right. Right here. So, yeah. Anyway, I got the correct carb for it. That's as far as I got. I just took the carburetor off of it. So, and I got some stuff to repair the spark plug wire. Remember I was showing you how that was cut up? So I'll take this. It's flexible and it's for automotive. And I'll reshape that where it's got big missing pieces out on the wire, and to ensure nothing ever arcs out. And then after it dries real good, I'll take this micro cord and I'll wrap it really good. You know, it's real small cord. I'll just wrap it round and round and round and round and round it. So, you know, you want to make it nice and secure, but you also want it to be able to flex. So that should be a really nice fix for that. And as far as that goes, as far as I am, that's the update. I'm going to turn the video off from here and kind of figure where we're going to go from here. See what I'm going to do. Be right back. All right, so I know we talked about the fuel caps. You know, the original fuel cap was a little different than this. It just had a metal piece in here, but it had a little round disc thing. You know, I talked about it. I told you. Anyway, I bought a couple junk caps, and I also got a brand used one, but that one literally is brand used. Well, it's actually brand new. It's just very old because they don't make these parts like this anymore. So this one in the package is like this one of the junk ones that I had bought, which is a little different than the original, but the whole purpose of all that is just to allow, you know, air to circulate into the fuel system. But just for fun purposes, let's try and pull this out. That duckbill is what it's called. I'm just curious if maybe we can clean this up and reuse that or what. It's turning pretty easy. Oh, that come out easy. I probably, you can get off of Leon's Chainsaw and Repair. He's got duckbills. They're not like that, but they're just rubber. It's got like a little pinch tube, or two pieces of rubber that come together, and it'll allow, you know, air in, but won't allow fumes and stuff to come out. But that's pretty neat. I'm going to fiddle with this for a second, see what I can figure out. I'll be right back. All right, so I took and cleaned this out with some brake cleaner. You know, put the tip in that way and blew, and a whole lot come out nasty blackness. And it actually works pretty well. Like, you know, this thing is designed, naturally it goes in like this, and the fuel system will, when it puts like a, you know, a pull on the system, it'll suck air in through this, and it'll come through the cap and then, you know, through here. So when I blow into that end, it comes through easy like it's supposed to, and it actually kind of works. This might be a little worn out, but when I try and blow the air the other way in here, it doesn't come out as near as easy. Like, it goes a little bit, but I don't think, you know, between that mesh and everything being there, I don't think that would leak. I kind of clean that out down in there. You might just want to take soap and water to this and put air pressure in there. I know, I'm not sure what's up in there. Brake cleaner could hurt it, but, you know, to each their own. And this piece, I'm assuming, just kind of goes right back down in the way that it came out. I'll put a little pressure on it. Twist her down in there some here. If I can't get it to seat back in, I believe that's all she is. Yeah, I probably didn't need to get that brand new cap. But hey, we got an extra, right? All right, so I had to. I broke it open. You know, here's the new one. I was curious how it went. I can blow air both ways on that one too. So this specific design, unless it acts different when it's wet for some reason and when it's working, I believe this is more, that piece you're seeing right there, somehow or another will just keep gas from coming out. I mean, that hole in this cap is tiny. See it there? So anyway, this is the new one, and I can blow air both ways, but, you know, if it gets wet or it's working, it may do something a little different. But that cap over there pretty much has the same behavior. It's just easier to blow through. This one has a little bit more restriction. Anyway, as long as the fuel system, you know, is allowing to draw in air from the atmosphere to, you know, because if it's running off of the system and there's no air that can get into the system, you know, and the saw's sucking, it's going to cause it to, you know, stop pulling fuel because of the pressure. Negative pressure, I guess is what it's called. But anyway, got to have a hole in the system. It's kind of like a beer can. take a beer can and hold it upside down, and you crack, just barely crack the top of it, it'll come out only so fast, you know, and air's going in at the same time. But if you poke a hole in the top of it, you know, starts coming out the other way. Anyway, same difference. Yep. All right. Anyway, I just wanted to show that cap real quick. I'll figure out what we're going to do next. Be right back with you. All right. So I've been looking at the body of this thing and kind of like making a pre-plan on how to take this apart, because I don't think there is anything online how to take these babies down as far as the body parts and stuff. So probably going to maybe take the tank off of it first, or well, I guess second from this point. But what I'm doing now is I want to take this clutch off of here, and a closer inspection of this drum, see that where it got hot? When metal gets hot, it handles heat differently, and it'll get slick like. See that real shiny spot in there? And it won't grip like it's supposed to. So I might be getting me another one of these. You know, I might be able to sand it down, but the thing is, if I can't sand that slick off or that heat off, and I probably can't. I mean, you can see it there, it probably went all the way through. It just makes metal different when it gets that hot. I don't know, they all might do it, but I don't think, you know, most likely they all don't do that. It would probably still work, but don't want to ruin a new clutch. So I may just use this drum for a bit. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. I'll probably just end up getting another drum. You know, you can see there where it got hot in multiple places. Anyway, what I'm going to do from now is take this off. This is a righty-tighty, lefty-loosey thread. You know, some of this older stuff, you got to be careful. They'll put backwards threads on them. You can always usually find out by looking at it. You know, you got to get in there and close and look, you know, how it's threaded, and kind of imagine which way it will go when you turn it on or off. But, and, you know, it's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. She's coming off, so be right back with you. Okay, so I don't know if there's any of these online or not. So I'm going to record this. Me taking it apart. Okay, so took the nut off, and then after the nut was the washer, and then after the washer was the lock washer. That was taking it off. You know, so before the drum come off, you had nut first, washer second, then a lock washer. Naturally it'd be backwards, going the other way, and then your drum will pull off. But it's got more to it here. And there's a sleeve that comes off of it. Sleeve there. I don't think it matters which way that goes, but there's a sleeve. And there's also a wash, and then a washer comes off of there. And I'm assuming the clutch will come off. Be right back. All right, so that baby was a bear. The clutch itself has like a webbing or housing or main frame that it has, which is what you're looking at right there. And then it has springs. There's one on the bottom, and then there's one right here that hold these shoes on. And I guess this one's been full width before, because from what I understood, the C7's only had 3 shoes all the way around. But when I took that drum off, all the shoes was there. Anyway, there's a puller. Hang on, that thing will shake forever. Hang on, let me sturdy up. Okay, so there's a puller that is made specifically for these clutches. You know, if you look up Homelite C series clutch puller or clutch removal tool, you'll see it. But someone's used it on this before, because this is chipped and the other hole on the other side is chipped. If you look up, you know, what I just said, the C series or Homelite C7 chainsaw clutch removal, you'll see Leon's video, you know, Leon's chainsaw repairs. You'll see him. He has a Homelite saw. I'm not sure which one it is. There's probably a bunch of them fall into this category. Anyway, he shows that removal tool and what to do. And you put you a piece of rope down there like I was talking about, and that fouls this crank up and it won't turn. I forgot to tell you, is when you do that, you know, naturally when you turn your crank from here or the other side, your piston goes up and down. Make sure that piston is on the upstroke and it just, your ring passes, you know, the bottom part of your cylinder wall down here. That way your rope don't get fouled up in there, you know, because after it goes up that far, you just put you some rope in there and then keep turning this to the right and it'll keep pushing that piston up. That's just to keep from your rope fouling up in there. Anyway, so I took a torch and I heated that up. I didn't put any direct heat on the shaft. You know, naturally, I don't know how much thread's in there, but I, you know, constantly moved it, and I just slowly heated up this entire piece right around in this area. You know, I didn't get no heat out here. I didn't put no heat direct on this. I did aim down into that a little bit, you know, warmed it up. I mean, it was nice and hot. And what I did was I doubled up me some towels and put up against that brick back there. Now I've got what I call a baby King Kong, which this is a 4-pound hammer. And then I've got a pry bar. You know, it's a pretty good size pry bar. You know. And after it got nice and tight, I got all the slack out of this. You know, I turned it left until the piston was pressed up against that rope. And I held it right there and I smacked the other end of this pry bar. And she came loose for me. You know, hopefully you guys don't have to do that. Putting heat to stuff like that ain't good. You know, that's your crank right there. But I did it. So, I also ruined that bottom spring down there. But I got a new clutch coming. I'm just going to get a new drum too, guys. I'm not, you know, that's burnt. You know what I mean? So, $10 for nothing. Anyway, I'm going to let that cool on off of there and we'll pull that clutch off. Be right back. I wanted to let you know too, let that cool off. You know, just let it sit and cool. I wouldn't take no liquid or, you know, anything cold or like a wet rag or anything to it. Let it slowly cool. Probably don't want that to cool off really fast. It'll mess with the metal. So it can, depending on how hot and how fast you cool. I wouldn't do that. If you had to use heat like I did, be careful, don't heat it up too much. You know, nothing was red at all, anywhere near red on mine. So I just heated it up really good. And, but I would not use anything to cool that off real fast like that. It might harden something that shouldn't be hardened. And, you know, it messes with the metal and then it never behaves right. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Okay. Now that I got that off of there, I'll go ahead and kind of show you this. Slot. So see there, it says off. You know, that part is facing you. Like if you go to put this back on, after the clutch comes off, this little disc thing will come off. And then that's pretty much all of it right in there so far that I've seen. So put it back together, this goes on first. Of course, mine's got a little ding on it. I did not do that. I don't think that's factory, but I'll get that ding out of there. But that comes off. Anyway, that goes on first. And then this will go on, you know, putting it in reverse. But you can see right there, see where I was talking about whoever put the puller on it last. See how it's broken there? It's also broken over there. That puller's just got 2 nipples that go down into them slots right there, and you can turn it to the right. See there, that's backwards threads because of how the motor turns. If it screwed on the other way, when you go into the wood, it would just sling it off. But anyway, righty loosey, lefty tighty for this clutch on this shaft right here. And like I was saying, this one's broken. I think they call this a spider web. But anyway, you got this, then these springs. And that one I've messed up. I got it too hot. I got a new clutch coming. Then you got your shoes, and you can choose how many of those you put on. There's a video online that shows how to put that clutch together between them 2 springs and them shoes. But that's that. I'll be back with you here in a little bit, see where we're going to go from here. All right, so I guess I'm going to just take that flywheel off again. First, I'll take that starter cup off. We've went over that. You know, you might need to use your rope trick on that also. Just this one's this one's the regular thread. You know, it's going to come off going to the left or counterclockwise. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. I'm going to pull the starter cup off and the flywheel off, and be right back with you. So looking at this thing, getting farther and farther into it, seeing how all these housing pieces come together. Of course, right now it seems complicated. It seems like they're just attached from here, there, and everywhere. So, you know, like this spark plug wire runs through this frame and a grommet. And the only way to pull it out, you know, like I wanted to take this off, you know, separate it off of the motor. But, you know, naturally I'd have to take this off, and I could pull it out of this grommet up here, but I'd have to take that end off of that plug to pull that through here, and I do not want to do that, and I don't think this wire will also come off of this. So, that being said, I want to keep that in there so I don't have to pull that spark plug head off of there and redo all that. I want to keep that the way that it is. So, I'm going to have to pick at this thing slowly. So the first thing, it looks like this piece right here will be fairly simple. Let me take a look at it, and I'll come back to you and show you the exact bolts in just a second. And I know I said this wasn't going to be like the last chainsaw. It's not going to be as in-depth, but you know, there isn't a video for this stuff. So, you know, I want to show how to take this thing apart. So here we go. So this piece looks like it's just going to be two nuts, bolts, whatever you want to call them. This one here, and then it's back in here, right here. Just a heads up too, you guys, when you're taking stuff, disassembling like this, when it's dirty, you know, clean that up. It makes the socket, for one, fit properly, and then it won't slip on you, and it just, you know, makes things tidier. Same thing with the groove. Anytime you see something like this with a screwdriver head or hex head, or, you know, socket head, I always try to use a socket on them if you can. But naturally, like this one here, I can't. I've got to get a screwdriver in through here to get that out, you know, or I could put a wrench on it, but I'm going to try a screwdriver on it. But also clean that slot out where that screwdriver goes, you know, clean it out real good. Makes a huge difference on how that screwdriver fits, and it won't slip out there and, you know, strip it and everything else. So anyway, those are the two bolts. I'm going to get them out. Be right back. All right, so like I was saying, these things can be just a right out pain in the rear. You know, we're used to things. Back in the day, they went through a lot in engineering, and we learned through the years, so we don't have to today, but things were nice back then. Anyway, what I'm getting to is this thing has bolts and stuff everywhere. This holds this and this holds that. So those bolts I told you to take off, it does loosen this plate, but it will not come out because there's something else that's got to come off. And when you take that plate off back in here, there's a grommet that's hooked up in there to the spark plug. You'll see it. It's up in here. It comes out easily. Anyway, it's free from that point. Just can't jimmy it out with like breaking and forcing stuff. So after I took them two bolts out, of course, you know, I always put, oh, sorry, that thing will shake forever if I don't stop it. I put my bolts back in. I got them two bolts put back in there. Anyway, we're going to, this handle, this whole handle, and this whole housing piece right here is one piece. So to get this off, you got to take these four bolts out, which hold your, that's the piece that holds on your, Lord, wreath, your intake wreath right there. You know, your carburetor attaches to it. Anyway, take them off. Then you got a fuel line that runs through here, which, You know, mine has come off of that up in there, I do believe. And you also got this linkage here for your oil pumper. I took that off. I took my Pepal's piece of wood off. It just pushes up on there, I reckon. Anyway, and you got 2 bolts up underneath right there. See them 2 bolts right here? You got my light shining on them. This one and this one. And you gotta be careful because there's a gasket right in here, down in this hole. There's a gasket there. Oh yeah, and then there's this one right here that you gotta take out too. It actually goes into the housing of this. I do believe that'll come off, so don't forget where your bolts go. Be right back once I get that going here. Okay. So those 2 pieces come off at one time. Yes, when you pull this out, like I was saying, there's a gasket in between here and under here. Be careful with it, you know. And this oiler bar, actually I didn't have to take that piece off of there. It will just come off with that. It just, if you see the end of it there, it pushes into this little plunger piece right here. You know, just got a little cavity that the end of that linkage goes into. You can hear it. So it sounds like that baby's definitely going to work. Anyway, that comes right off of there. This was the fuel line. There's a little nipple right here that the fuel line goes onto. And then that's it. You know, when you take it off, both the handle piece and this piece right here will come off. And so you get them off of there. Of course, I put my spark plug back in. This gasket I'm not going to remove. There's the gasket. I'm going to try and keep it on there if I can. I've got it covered up, and I'll cover this up, and I'll put the spark plug back in there too, because it's all dirty again and stuff, and it's just to keep from everything getting in the engine. You know, that's the only way into the engine, unless you got like a leak in a seal or something somewhere. So I'm going to kind of sit and study this thing for a minute and see where we're going to go from here. We might try and go for the fuel tank. Be right back with you. Let's go ahead and take this dog off right here. Take that baby off. You got a square nut here, square nut there. Get you a wrench and hold it. Might be able to turn and get them loose without even having to turn that big flathead screw on the other side. But either way, take them 2 bolts right here, you know, this bolt down here, this bolt down here, or nut. This nut off this bolt, this nut off this bolt, and that should come right off there. Be right back. And just to get a picture of how that went on there, goes on like that. Like that. Goes on the right side of this, so on this side of this. It's just like that right there. Some other holes down through there. Assuming that's because maybe there's some other ones, but I got that back light on back there so you can kind of see the silhouette of this thing on my hand a little bit better, but see how the points kind of point upwards, the tips, these right here. Goes on just like that. Oh, and naturally, you know, once you put that on, this thing, bolt, goes on the left side, and then your square nut, as this is sitting now, you know, this will go on the right side. That's it. All right, so we're going to do the fuel tank next. And I really hope the fuel tank is separate than the oil tank, because it looks like to me the oil tank apparatus, like the pump and stuff, is also attached to this side plate. And this side plate looks like to me is held in by these bolts. Anyway, we'll get there in a minute. As of right now, I'm going to go ahead and take this bar off, or attempt to. Hopefully this will do it. So I'm going to take this bolt out, and it just looks like there's a lock nut washer there. And then there's these 2 down here. There's lock nuts on them too, and it looks like to me them bolts just go right into the frame right here. There is nowhere to get on them on the other side. It don't look like. Looks like they just go straight through. So we'll try and take them 3 out, and I'll be right back. On this one right here, I would advise you put a socket on that. Put you a socket on there. You might have to tap it on with something and then get you a ratchet or whatever and take it off. Okay, that brings your bar off. Don't put the bolts back in though. Put your bolts through your bar for now. All right, so next one, you got one up in here, right here. Mine was gone, so I mean, I'm assuming there's supposed to be a bolt there, but I'm almost positive that's a chainsaw or a fastener for the tank. And you got one right here. It's right there. That one right there. Take that one off. And yours is probably going to have one up there, like I was saying in there. Back in here. Back in there, that hole right there. And then you got one here on the side, down here. Here, let me turn this off back here. That's ruining everything. You got one here, and you got one here. And I believe that'll bring the tank off. And I will try that myself, see if it does bring the tank off. Give me just a minute. Oh yeah, get you a 5/16 socket, an extension to get all of them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is a 100% affirmative on this being a bolt for the tank. I'd say I'm gonna have to rethread that. That'll be fine. I'll look at that later whenever I clean it up. Check this out. Looks like Papa or somebody has had a hole in the oil tank. I'm wondering why and how that happened, because to put a hole in this, Lord, I mean, you know, because the fuel tank sits on here like this, you know, and that's kind of like covers the oil tank. Oh yeah, if your gas tank does not leak, you know, this is 2-piece. See all these screws and stuff? If it does not leak, do not take it apart. And fill it up, clean it up real good, fill it up, put the cap on it. Don't spill none. Make sure nothing leaks out of this. Let it sit for a while. If that baby ain't leaking, don't touch it. I wouldn't anyway. Same thing with your oil. You know, so mine, if I can get some better light on that for you, that you can see it without, it's a bad lighting. Get a little closer for you to look at it. Yeah, so exactly what was going on there. I don't know what happened. There's a big, hang on a second. Let me get you to stop shaking. There's a big spot down here, a dent. And I don't think, it could be factory for the body to go in there, but I don't know. Anyway, I'll definitely say Papa's done some patchwork. But if that don't leak, I'm going to keep that the same too. So next thing, when I look under here, if you look right here, you can see a body seam right here. Looks like that comes apart, and this whole piece right here to the left, this whole big piece, you know, all of this, all of this, and the oil tank, and here's the oil mechanism for the pump or whatever, and the oil tank, and this piece I believe all comes off as one. So let me take a look at that and be right back with you. Okay, so before you do that, where I was talking about that body seam, I was not expecting it. Right here, as you can see, when you take this piece off, which is a part of the tank, and I got to thinking, this could be factory, that they have to do this to get inside. So I've noticed a couple things. Hang on, I'm going to show you. So if you look in this fuel tank, where'd it go? It's somewhere. Where is it? Oh, it was in the bottom of this right here. So if you look right here and you see that, I mean, I'm assuming that this chamber would be pretty almost airtight, you know, other than what the filter is filtering off, but there's a hole in it with like a cotter pin. I don't know if you can see that down in there, moving around. Now there's another one of these in this oil tank. See that pin there? In this oil tank. So maybe to get this oil mechanism to work, kind of like that tank on the other one that we done on the David Bradley, maybe they had to have access to inside of here you know, to do things. So maybe this is factory. I don't know. I don't know. I just wanted to point that out. But this piece right here in my hand, when you remove all these bolts right here, this will come off of this. But be careful, because when you take that off, this is the crank. This is the crankcase. I was not expecting that. You know, there's a needle bearing and a seal right here that the crank runs on. And then inside of here, I mean, you can look down in there and see the crank. Hang on, I'll show you. There, that's the housing, or that's the casing in there. So at this point, there was no gasket right here. You know, two strokes are a little different, you know, as long as it's not got leaks and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure they used something on this when they put it on, but I don't know what that is yet. I've got to find out what it is to put on that. But just to let you know, when you take that off, it, you know, it exposes your crankcase. And at this point, I may put a ring on this. I don't know, you know, because it's just 4 bolts that hold this cylinder on. And cylinder, you know, would be easily pulled off as long as I don't mess this gasket up. I could just, you know, put me a new ring on it. So since I got it torn down this far, I just might. But yeah, it's just these, and all these bolts are the same size, you know, just all these bolts right here. As soon as you loosen that up, it'll come off of there. That's all there is of holding it. As long as you're doing it exactly how I'm doing it anyway. All right, I'm going to kind of clean everything up from this point. If I wanted to, from this point, I could probably clean and paint everything just like it sits and put everything back together. Do my rebuild kit on my carburetor and my starter. You know, get my clutch and my drum clutch or my drum in. You know, sprocket, and have a saw. But I might dig a little deeper. I don't know. I'm going to figure that out. I'll be right back with you. All right, so update on the oil tank. I was just kind of brainstorming earlier, but that is not stock, I don't believe, because naturally, like I was saying, you know, I thought maybe it was a way for them to get in, but they wouldn't be using different screws, and they just wouldn't do it like that anyway. They get into it before they put it onto here, you know, for things like this. And it sounds like there's something else inside of that. I don't know what it is, but so being that those screws like that protruding the way they do, I do believe I know why this screw was missing. Because if you notice and see, you can see like a blemish here, but maybe not this one, but for sure these two. That is from those screws in that plate. So it's possible that this part isn't pushing up against like it's supposed to. Anyway, I can't have that. I will fix that. I'll probably take something and grind these down. At least some, or I don't know. I'll figure something out when I get to that. Anyway, just want to touch base on that. So from here, I'm going to do some figuring if I want to put a ring on that. And I've got some play in this. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but that's where the rod goes into the crank. So need to find out if that's normal, and if not, I got to replace that. And if I replace that, I'll probably just put a new ring in it. But the thing is nowadays parts, if it's got good compression, I'll have to get a compression test to check the compression. Because if the compression's okay, then there's no reason to put a new ring in it. But if I knew that the parts was as good as they used to be back then, it would be different. But you know, if what's in it now, how they was made back then compared to now, if the compression is okay in it, I'll just leave it alone. But anyway, I need to find out about that crank right there. That's where I'm at now. So, you know, do some thinking on it, and well, you guys will see me instantaneously here in just literally 1 second. All right, so there is a ring. It's an O-ring. When I pulled it off, I didn't see it, but let me get you this little pointer right here. See this right here where I'm touching? Right there. That is an O-ring, ladies and gentlemen. I've got my compression kit. So before I put rings in, oh, and this is not good. That's not normal. So ordered a bunch of stuff, about $100 and some worth of stuff. I got 2 rings for the piston, because the piston has 2 rings. I got bearings for the crank where it connects to the piston. I got bearings for the crank, or I'm sorry, I got bearings for the rod where it connects to the piston, and I got bearings for the rod where it connects to the crank. I got an oil tank, an oil tank seal. And when them parts get here, I'll show them to you. But until then, I can do a little something. I'm going to put this casing back together, and I'm going to check the compression in this. I found out brand new, you know, compression never went over 150. So anywhere from 120 to 150. I contacted Leon from Leon's Chainsaw and Repair. He said he's never seen them above 150 brand new. So anywhere from 120 to 150. And I'm curious how the compression is. So I'm going to put this crankcase back together. I might blow it up and clean it up a little bit too while I'm at it. So I'm going to put this case back on, put them screws back in, and I'll be right back with you. Oh, in the description too, just to let you know, there's a bunch of stuff on, there's a manual in there, in the link in the description, shows the torque specs for this bad boy, the ones that you want to know. But a lot of times people will just go by feel, but if you do want the torque specs, just want to let you know that it's there. Be right back. All right, got them on, or them bolts in. It was just them, just these bolts in here is all that held that on. But I'm going to blow this off. There's a lot of stuff in here, so actually let me get some safety glasses on. Hang on, I'll be right back. All right, eye is back. So I'm going to blow this baby down a little bit. Everything taped off, start plugging all the holes. All right, let's do it. Compressor may kick on, so biggest part, we'll get right here some more. Get in here a little bit again. Here's some. All right. Been doing a little bit of thinking here. And okay, so I know I reference a lot of things and I kind of bounce around on information. So in 63 and 64, I'm pretty sure, you know, I've heard people say 1962 to 1967 that all of them was made, but I'm pretty sure maybe late 62 to 64, but right around in that range is when all the C series saws were made, other than I believe like the C7 twos and C5 twos and C9 twos. I believe them were made, I don't know, 70s and 80s maybe. I'm not 100% sure on that. And the reason I say that is because, see this case right here? This come off of something two, either a C52, or I'm sorry, it couldn't be 52 because it's red, but it either come off of a C72 or C92. The C7, C5, and C9 did not have this buildup in it or this over here. It was all, well, I've got one over here. I'll show you what they were. Of course, the blue files were blue, but they look like that. You know, there was no buildup anywhere. They were just ribs all the way around. And then the 7-1 and 5-1, but of course that was blue, and 9-1, they had this buildup on them because they had a, I think it was still the same style of starter. It was just a little different. Had a hole right here. Hang on, I'll show you. See how this is the way that it is? The ones that they come out with on the, you know, 5-1, 7-1, and 9-1s, and I've also noticed on the 5s, even on the 5-1s, they were still sometimes this. They might have been on the others too, but anyway, Lord, that can be so confusing. On the 7-1s, 5-1s, and 9-1s, they had a little hole here, you know, for the string to go down into. You know, of course, there's holes here, but there was a more, it's a different type of hole on the starter. Anyway, that's why on the 7-1s, they made this little mod right in here, you know, kind of before all that. But this part was not like that on the 5-1, 7-1s, or 9-1s that I seen. And I looked at a bunch. This now the 5-2s, you know, C5-2s, C7-2s, C9-2s, they were like this and had this. But I'm pretty sure the 2s, the 7-2s were made pretty later. Anyway, this saw has been through a lot, and it's going to be, and I think that's very interesting, and I like that. But so, story on this. So I want to show something to you. For something to get into to damage that enough to where somebody has put a plate on like this, it would have to be a lot. Because see this tank, how this is? Let me back this up some. See how that is? When this turns, it covers this oil tank. See, there's the oil tank. This sits on like that. It completely covers it like that. So for something to puncture that, someone had to like have the tank off of it and hit it. But looking further, the color of this tank is different than the rest of the saw. Like the wear color on it, you can probably see it there. Which granted, this probably wasn't exposed much. This was more exposed than anything, but it's also different from these two. Pretty different. So I believe at one point something long and sharp, like a big pry bar or a big spade bar, something thrown around in the truck maybe had went through and punctured through that and put a hole in that tank. Something along them lines. And then they had to repair it. That's just, you know, some brainstorming that I wanted to bring you up on with that, and also too a little bit of clarity on the saw models for the C series. And they can get a little confusing. But at this point, while we're waiting on them parts and stuff, like I said, I want to do a compression check on this thing. So I'm going to get set up for a compression test, and I'll be right back with you. All right, we are set up for a compression test. I've been pulling on it with a drawstring and stuff. When I first did it, seems like I had a little over 100. And then after that, it dropped. Like it's reading around 100 every single time. Sorry, I tried to record the first time around that I did it, and it had some complications. But I've also heard, though, that you can put a little bit of oil in the cylinder and that'll raise the compression some. So maybe it had a little bit of leftover oil in it from sitting and, you know, all the WD I've been squirting. Anyway, I only get about around 100. That's by pulling it repeatedly and also using a drill, which is what I'm going to do right now. So I'm just going to use a drill on it with the socket on the clutch side here. You can watch it. That should be more enough, really. That's probably cheating. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit the thing. You can see there, it's reading around 100. So what I'm going to do now, just for video purposes, I'm going to put the, sorry, I'm going to put the camera right up against the gauge there and let you watch it that way. Watch her. Ready? And really, in reality, that's never going to do that by hand cranking, but 100 pounds. They say they'll run at 90, but this saw, smaller saws, is like 90 to 110, I think, but this saw should range from 120 to 150. So I'll probably pull the cylinder off of it, which I'll probably have to do that anyway to change that bearing. So anyway, that's the compression test. We are going to replace the rings because I've already got them ordered anyway. So yeah, that's 100 is a little low. Like I believe I may have said so, but when I first did it a while ago, it had, you know, a little above 100. It may have had a little bit of oil in the cylinder. You know, they say having oil in the cylinder will raise the compression, but naturally, we don't want to do that. You know, we want to check it, how it's going to run. But then again, this thing hasn't been actually ran in decades. So those rings could be good. They just might be a little gummy in there, and it would take running it for a little bit to actually to get it to come all the way back around, and it probably would get a little bit more. But heck, like I was saying, I got to replace that rod bearing anyway. So while I got it apart, because I've got to take the cylinder off of it to get in to get the rod bearing off and everything. So while I'm in there, I might as well just do the rings too. It ain't going to hurt nothing. So that's what we're going to do right now. I'm going to pull that cylinder off. There's 4 bolts, 2 here and 2 underneath, and it is a 7/16. So I'm going to get them loose and almost off, and then I'll pop the video back on. Be right back. All right, got them off. I did crack it loose. Yeah, that's coming out of there easily. Yeah. Get a quick look at the cylinder. There's a little bit of wear, but no big gouges. That's really good that there's no gouges, y'all. Where's that light at? It's on this side. A little bit in here, but it's chrome lined, I think, or something. It's got a little bit of aluminum on it. I believe that's what that is. There's an acid that will take that off of there. But for the most part, I don't see nothing real big in there. Let me get you close on this piston here too. While we're at it, might as well. A lot of that, you can't feel that on your fingernail at all. Oh yeah, that ring right there is stuck. Yeah, that ring ain't moving at all, so that's why that compression was low. Yeah, I'd say if that other ring come alive, it would be compression would be just fine, but I'll put rings on it, clean the top of the piston off, and yeah, it don't look too bad. If I find any real bad places on it, I'll show it to you. All right, I'm gonna check this all out. And figure out where we'll go from here. I'll be right back with you. All right, so this, there's the rod bolts, you know, that hold the cap on the crank are to be so little, these little suckers got some torque on them. So what I'm doing is I found the right Allen wrench, and it fits very snug. But I put a wrench on my Allen wrench and choked up on it down in there because it would have just bent the Allen wrench. And I'm going to show you how much force I've got to put to get this thing loose. The other one. For that thing to be so small, you guys, this Allen wrench size is, I think it says 9 something. 9/64. I think it says. Anyway, so those got some pressure on them, just to let you know, especially for putting it back too. I don't know if these have Loctite or not. I want to pull the bolts out of them. Probably not supposed to use Loctite inside of a motor because it gets hit hot and drips out. And then that glue getting in on all your walls and rings, and yeah, that would be a mess anyway. So yeah, same thing with when, like, you see me put gas in that bottle. Make sure that bottle's rated for gasoline, because if it isn't, it'll get traces of plastic in, eat the plastic off, and then you spray it in your carburetor or in your saw, and it'll just get it everywhere. Anyway, I'm gonna pull them 2 little bolts out, and our piston will be free. I'll be back with you here in a minute. Okay. I got the rod off of the crank. I cleaned the piston. And yeah, that's why we didn't have compression for them cavities. I took them rings out. Those ring slots were nasty. And can you see that little pin right there? I think both gaps, I think that pin's supposed to be in between the gaps on the pin. Or I'm sorry, on the rings. I'm not sure. I'm going to find out for sure. I think they have to be. But usually rings, I have heard rings, you don't want the gap being right, one gap beside each other on this ring, and then the gap, beside this one down here on this ring. But I believe that would have to be, and I think that's what that pin's for. I found out for sure. Anyway, I took WD-40 and cleaned this baby up. It come nice and clean. This side was the side that had the real bad carbon on it that we were looking at. I just took WD-40 and a rag, mostly. I did take a copper wire brush, a really small one, and just very lightly make circular motions with the WD-40 to get some of the heavy stuff off. And then, when you check things, you want to check for movement and bluing. Always check for bluing on stuff. If it's blue, it ain't no good. But obviously that is just fine. You can see a little bit in there where it got warm, but it's nothing bad. And these are needle bearings. See all these needle bearings down here? There's 27 of these things in there. And yes, you have to put them in one by one. I would imagine there's some kind of grease or something that you use whenever you put it back in. And there's 27 of them. Here's the cap to it, to the rod. Oh, and keep up which screw goes in which hole here. Now the cap can only go on one way. If you look at that right there, that edge, it's slanted right there. And so is that side. See how it's slanted? And if you look at the edge there, it's slanted, and then the edge there is slanted. That way the cap can only go on one way. You don't get it mixed up which way it goes, but don't forget which screw goes in which hole. I mean, it's not the end of the world if you got them backwards, but it's best to keep them where, same place if you can. So, and it is a 2-inch bore. That's how you know for sure it's a C7. 2-inch bore on your cylinder is a C7. We've already looked at that, talked about that, but I did take my micrometer and measure it. It is a 2-inch bore. There's no bluing in there. There's no bluing on the crank. The crank has no play left to right or up or down, so it's good to go. Oh, and this bearing up in here, there really, I mean, there really isn't any. So I might not replace that one up in there. Oh yeah, the fuel tank. I'm getting, this is how I'm doing. I'm checking it, what I done. See, the gasket runs right here all the way around. And I don't have a cap to cover this hole right here. So what I've done is I've filled the fuel up as it's laying down like this. The fuel rides, you know, just above that, the casing line where the seal is. And I'll let that sit overnight, and I'll come tomorrow and see if that leaks or not. And that's how I'll do my leak check. That's how I'm doing it. Next thing I'm going to do here real quickly is I'm going to go ahead and take this tank off. You know, I'm getting another one. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and it looks like 5, but it looks like the head's been broken off of that in there. So once I get all this off, I'll try and extract that out of there. But I'm going to take them off, and after I get them off, I'll be right back with you. All right, I got her off. And if you can see in there, there's definitely a big hole. And it does not look like that it was purposely made, like for some kind of accident. You know, back then they didn't have internet, you guys. So him taking this off, he would have known he would have had to have had a gasket. And he needed to have get in here because there's a filter on that in there. But I don't know. I think it was done on accident, and something was thrown around on the truck and busted through the fuel tank and into this. Anyway, there's the repair. I'm gonna put the bolts back in. It'll have to get me another one. Obviously, this one doesn't matter because I got a new tank coming. But I'll keep that tank. But right here, you can see how that kind of works in there. There was the bottom of the tank right here. You can see where there's some sediment. There's the little filter it picks up from. What I'm going to do, it pulls in through there and it comes through here. It picks up here and it comes through here. You know, there's the cylinder of this. And it pushes down there and it comes out this little hole right here. I'm going to check it. I've got us a little thing of transmission fluid. I'm going to set us up. I'm going to put this down in the transmission fluid. I'm going to pump this and see if something comes out that hole right there. I'm going to get the camera set up. I'll be right back. Okay, I've got that down in there. I'm going to pump this thing here. Let's see if that's going to work for us. What do you think? Think it's going to? We'll find out here. So far, that's not doing no good. I'll take this cap off here. See if that's going to make it work. Is it in there? Yeah, it's in there. Starting to. I just need a pond, maybe. Yep. There she is. Look there. Oh, I just squirted that right directly on my camera lens. Hang on, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. All right, that was a good one. I got you over to the side now, but let's see here. Oh, yeah. That works nicely. Oh, yeah, I'm not... Just barely am pumping that. Oh yeah, that'll work good. I'm only giving that. Just barely pumping it. Yeah, if I was to give it full pumps, it would squirt it all over the place. All right, that's a good deal. Okay, know that works. So at this point, I've got to wait for parts. And I didn't want to mention anything yet, but I've been trying to get a hold of some of the famous YouTube boys. You know, you got Tinman and Iron Horse and Smitty, and got a couple other ones that do like porting and stuff on saws, make them beefy and stronger and A lot of times it makes them last longer when you port them. Just a bunch of tricks. Anyway, I've been getting a hold of them. Ain't a lot of them. It's hard to get any of them to do anything. But I'm thinking about doing it. I don't know for sure, but I may send this cylinder into somebody and have them do some work on it. You know, I'm sure I'll probably, if I was to do that, I'd probably update the reeds and maybe the exhaust too. So it's a whole ordeal. I'm not 100% sure about it. I'm thinking about it, but this will be the end of part 2. Hope you're enjoying it. And if anybody is redoing a C7 and it's helping them, you know, let me know. Let me know that this is, you know, helping you out and stuff. Or just comment, period. Talk to me a little bit. But yeah, this is the end of part 2. Part 3 is on its way and will be at you soon. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.